Okay.
Okay, hello Ashley. I have already peeled 5 big apples, 3 Gala and 2 Granny Smith, that's the green apples. It might take more than that. And the recipe calls for 1.5 to 2.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. I put 2 teaspoons and I feel like that's more than enough. In fact, it may be a little too much. You might want to go back to the 1.5. Also calls for 1/3 cup of light crust all-purpose flour. So I'm going to get that. And I use all-purpose. I don't particularly think that you have to have light crust. You don't have to have a special flour. Just a good all-purpose flour. And it says 1/3 cup. Well, you know you're not. So I'm measuring out this much. And I'm just going to sprinkle some over it. This is just to give it a little bit of heavy liquid when the pie is cooked. And I'm going to also add, the recipe calls for only 1/2 cup of sugar. Well, I put 1 cup of sugar. So I'm going to add 1/2 cup of brown sugar to this mixture, and we're going to stir it good and set it aside so we can make the crust. So let me get my brown sugar out. And I'm going to put like 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar. Since I've already put the cup of white sugar, I just did it just the opposite of what my recipe called for. But a lot of times I do things like that. So, we're going to stir this up good. When we get ready to put this into the pie crust in the pan, we're going to add just a little bit of Sprite or 7-Up, anything that's light colored. Any kind of a drink, but it probably needs just a little, because my apples were a little old, so they were not quite as fresh as they should have been. We're going to have to add a little bit of liquid to it. Okay, let me show you something about an apple. When you go to buy your apples, this is the blossom end, and it's very tight. That's the way you want your apples to look. That means that they're going to be more juicy. They haven't been on the shelf that long. If that is wide open, put it back. You don't want to buy that apple, okay? So that's just a little side there. I'm going to have to put my my nutmeg in here. Actually, I think I did. It called for 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. That's entirely up to your taste. It's just a very small hint of nutmeg, okay? So we're going to set that aside. That's ready now for the pie crust. And here we go with the pie crust. This is really simple. It never fails. I can find my measuring cup. Appreciate your daddy not televising my rear. Okay, you just need a pretty good sized pan because it takes quite a bit of room to get it all mixed together. We're going to do 2 cups of flour. And again, this is just all purpose. In fact, I buy a Walmart brand, so it's really good, great value. And I use my sifter a lot, but you see me do this, particularly when I'm making rolls. And just kind of fluff it. Now that's 2 cups. It calls for a teaspoon of salt. I don't really measure. If you want to, you can. I just kind of sprinkle a little bit over the flour and mix it with my hand. I like Paula Dean's theory about your hands. It's the 2 best tools in the world right here. We're going to put 12 tablespoons, which is the easiest way to measure your Crisco. This is 3/4 of a cup of shortening. So just start counting. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, old-fashioned recipes always said take 2 knives and cut into small pieces. So I'm going to do that, just in case you don't have a pastry blender. Pastry blender is the best thing, one of the best things if you're going to be making a lot of pie. Go invest in it. Walmart has these for $2, $3, $4, maybe $5. I don't know. But I'm going to do it the way the recipe calls for it. And this is the way I did it all the time that I was taking home ec in high school, which was only 50-something years ago. So that was all we had. We really didn't have a pastry blender at that time. And you just keep cutting, and it takes a while because we do want little chunks. We don't want these great big chunks. So this is one of those little boring things, but you have to do it if you're going to do it this way. Tiny little pieces of Crisco and flour. You keep mixing and cutting. And I am going fast. You can also use, if you can find a really large, I'll show you my large pie fork in just a minute. If you, our friend Terry Clark loves the pie fork. She says she figured out that you could use that instead of a blender or the knife method. But just in case you ever get caught. And you do have a large oven. You have to have your oven set at 375 and getting heated and ready for you to put your pie in. By the time you get through peeling your apples and making your pie crust and getting it all together, it'll be heated enough. Okay, that's pretty close. It could be even smaller, but okay, next thing it says water. Well, ice cold water is what you want to use because you don't want your pie crust tough, and it will be if you work it too much. So I'm going to get some ice water, and we're going to put about 5.5 tablespoons of ice water. And just to make it a little bit colder, put a little bit of ice in it. Okay. And this I do measure, because if you get too much, you're in trouble, and if you don't put enough, you're in trouble. This is 3 tablespoons, 4, and I'll do just not quite 5 and see how my crust looks. Fork. Here's the fork I was talking about. This is a great thing, and if you can find this, like Crate and Barrel has these. Walmart might have them. I really haven't seen them, but I haven't looked for them there because Terry gave me this as a present. So, my friend Terry Clark. So we're going to mix this up with the water. I didn't quite do a complete 5 tablespoons, just in case. Sometimes when you start working with your crust and your water, your flour and your water and your Crisco, it seems like it might be just about enough. And again, you really don't want to work it for a long time, so I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit more water. And again, it's not going to be a full tablespoon, just a little bit. And it's amazing how quickly that little bit of water goes to work. The less you can use your hands, the better. But because your hands are hot, it's going to melt the Crisco if you work it a whole lot. I like a really flaky pie crust. So You do still have to use your hands some. Now it says in the recipe that you can immediately, but my old-timey recipe says let it, once you get it into a ball, let it rest for about 5 minutes. So when I get this into a ball, we're going to let it rest. Okay, your dad's can turn off the thing right now while we're waiting for 5 minutes for it to get to the right consistency and everything melds together. Okay?